Good evening, everybody. My name is Curt. So glad to be here with you all tonight. Ever since I can remember, you can call this pride, you can call this ego, maybe second child syndrome, call it what you will. I can remember that I've always lived by a conviction that failure is not an option. I can remember being in fourth grade specifically, where I was at school and, back in elementary school when they ask you, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? Everybody starts asking that question early on, and I can specifically remember that I always wanted to be an NFL football player, specifically an NFL quarterback. So my answer was, I want to play in the NFL, which, that got some laughs and some flack from my buddies and things like that. But I always wanted to play in the NFL, and failure was not an option. When I said that, I actually meant it in my heart. And so failure wasn't an option. Fast forward to high school. I played at East Kentwood High School locally here. I know I talked with a couple of you who are fellow Falcons in the crowd tonight. Go Falcons. Played well enough there at the position of quarterback to get recruited by a guy named Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's pretty much a household name these days. He's the head coach at the University of Notre Dame. So I remember when he came into the school, I wasn't getting recruited real heavily by Division I. I had an older brother that played at Michigan, so I had standards that I wanted to play Division I football. It just really wasn't working out for me, mostly because I was in a wing T offense. Ladies, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's not an offense that's conducive for quarterbacks to throw the ball a lot. So Brian Kelly shows up at East Kentwood High School, and I was kind of down in the dumps the day he came in. Ferris State had come in earlier. A week prior, offered me a full ride scholarship. I sent the coach back and said, no, I don't want to play Division II football. I have my sights set on playing Division I. And so Brian comes in. I remember meeting him in the gymnasium locker room at East Kentwood High School. I go down there, and I remember being in Spanish class, and this is pre-cell phones. Y'all can remember these days. This is just not too long ago, but late 90s, where I had somebody who came down from the office, and they used to use sticky notes. They'd come into your class, and they'd put a sticky note down on your desk, and it said, meet Brian Kelly down there. So I go down, I'm in Spanish class, and before I left the class, I told my buddies, I said, hey, man, I'm going to go let this guy down real quick. I'm going to send him packing, because I'm not going to play for Grand Valley State University. It's just not happening. So I go down to the gymnasium. I still remember walking in, and I see Brian there dressed to the nines. He's suited and booted. He looks like $1 million. And I sit down, and after a half an hour, I'm eating out of this guy's palm. And I can remember the things that he said to me just resonated with my heart. If you come to Grand Valley State University, we're going to win a national championship, and you're going to have an opportunity and a shot at possibly playing in the NFL. I mean, he really just told me what the desires of my heart were. He just encaptured them within a 30-minute period of time, and I remember thinking, man, I could play for that guy. And so I committed to Grand Valley State University that weekend, and I set 3 goals for myself, and these were the 3 goals. I wanted to win a national championship. I wanted to win the Division II Heisman Trophy, which is called the Harlan Hill. And then I wanted to play in the NFL. And failure was not an option. Even in my junior season, I dislocated my left knee. And I'm not just talking dislocating my kneecap. I'm talking about a full dislocation. If you were to take, my arm right now at the elbow and completely bend this part of my arm all the way back underneath. I'm talking about that kind of a dislocation where it was so severe that it was possibility that my knee was going to be amputated from the knee down. And I can remember going into the hospital when this happened and them telling me after the x-rays and actually wheeling me in a wheelchair, and they said, if your artery's torn, then we're going to have to do surgery, and there's possibility of amputation. Well, that obviously didn't happen, which I'm so thankful for. But they also, after the injury took place and they saw that my artery was still intact, the doctors told me this: you have less than a 5% chance of ever returning to football, to the game of football. And I was getting scouted by pretty much every team in the NFL at this point. And so my childhood dream was about to become a reality. And I was just so excited. And then I, go from being in this place of success down to my childhood dream is not going to take place. But they told me this: you have less than a 5% chance. I hope you caught that. You have less than a 5% chance. Y'all seen Dumb and Dumber before? The point in the movie where Lloyd looks over to Mary, the woman that he loves, and he says to her this. He says, so what are the chances that a guy like you and a girl like me could ever be together. And she says, not good. And he says, not good as in like 1 in 100? She says, not good as in like 1 in a million. And he responds, so you're telling me there's a chance. You remember that moment in the movie, right? When I heard 5%, I said, so you're telling me there's a chance. That's all I needed. I'm coming back to play. Came back, fortunately, made it back for my senior season, and we won a national championship. It was the first ever national championship in the history of Grand Valley State University, 2002. I won the Harlan Hill Trophy, which is the Division II Heisman Trophy, best player in the country of all Division II. And then I was going to make it into the NFL. And so next was the NFL, and failure was absolutely not an option. This was my childhood dream. I'm going to make it. And so I get into the NFL. I play a couple seasons. I didn't play during the regular season, but I was with them for a couple training camps. They sent me over to NFL Europe. I got to play in Scotland in NFL Europe for the Scottish Claymores. And then I came back from that, and I failed a physical. Couldn't pass their physicals anymore, and my knee was just a mess. I had no more cartilage left, bone on bone. And so I had to give up the game of football, and I got cut, and I got released for the second time, and failure was now a reality. And so what happened when I lived under this conviction my entire life, and maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about, that failure is not an option. You see what happened when I actually did fail and I didn't make it as an NFL quarterback. I labeled myself as a failure, and then I internalized it, and I moved back home here, and then I started to drink in excess. Started going to bars around town here in Grand Rapids where nobody knew my name, and I was pretty much hiding out, and then I got introduced to cocaine. David Chappelle, I think, says it best, cocaine is a hell of a drug. And I started and began a 5-year relationship with cocaine that devastated my life, almost ruined my marriage completely. But I started dealing with my failure in all the wrong ways and in all the wrong places. And then it all culminated in May 2nd of 2009 when I was arrested, pulled over, charged with drunk driving and possession of cocaine. And it hit the newspapers, it hit the news. I was on the front page of every local paper you could find around here, but it also went nationwide, even into the New York Times and around the country. And now I just wasn't merely a washed-up former football player who did not make it into the NFL, but I was also a complete and utter failure at the game of life. And I failed my wife. I failed my kids, my family, my friends, Grand Valley State University, all the kids who I had fans from all around the country that would send me letters, failed all of them. And I specifically remember coming to the point where I was ready to end my life. The weight was so strong. It's hard to describe, but it leaves a taste in your soul that is hard to get rid of. And I can remember for the first time wanting to end my life. I was on the fast track to divorce. My beautiful wife was sitting with me here tonight. I've hurt so many people by decisions that I've made. And I've never even said sorry to most of them. So if you're watching this video, I'm sorry. But it's interesting because as I was thinking about this talk, when they asked me to do Failure Lab, and I began to think about that word failure and what it meant in my life, I remembered that I lived by a conviction that failure is not an option my entire life. But then failure became a reality, and it led to more failures, and more failures, and more failures. And I'm convinced that my greatest failure in this lifetime won't be found in the laundry list of failures that I just listed off for you tonight. I think that it's possible that my greatest failure in this lifetime is actually believing the lie that failure is not an option.